It's Fudge review time. Let's go. Soul Resonance. So, if you guys don't know anything about Soul Eater, Fire Force is actually the prequel to Soul Eater. So, the events in Soul Eater take place approximately 800 years after the ending of Fire Force in a town called Death City inside the desert of Nevada. Now, Soul Eater is set in a world with Meisters and weapons, and it's important to note that weapons are still people, but they can just transform into weapons, and Meisters are the people who wield these weapons. And inside of Death City lives the DWMA, or the Death Weapon Meister Academy. Inside the DWMA is where these Meisters and weapons are trained and their specific soul abilities, soul powers. It's also where they practice soul resonance. On top of that, they hone their combat skills, their martial arts, as well as gain just a general knowledge of souls so they can be better equipped to accomplish the DWMA's main goal. Now, before we get to the main goal, the DWMA was founded 800 years ago, around after the events of Fire Force, by Lord Death, who is essentially God in this world. And if you watch Fire Force, you'll know that Senior created Lord Death at the end of Fire Force as a new god so that the people wouldn't have to create a god. So, shortly after Lord Death was created, he created the DWMA in order to create a place where he can train students in specific soul techniques, and so he could lead them down the right path in order to maintain world peace. So, the DWMA's main goal, or how they plan to maintain world peace, is to rid the world of all of the madness by getting rid of all of the evil souls, also known as Quichen eggs. Quichen eggs are just the name of all of the evil souls, or the souls which have strayed from the path of morality and taken the path of madness and evil. Now, the specific reason the DWMA tries to get rid of all of the Quichen egg souls is because if someone who is a Quichen egg eats a bunch of pure souls, or pure-hearted good people, and they completely encapsulate themselves in madness, they will become something known as a Quichen, which is essentially a god of madness whose power rivals Lord Death's. Now, there's a number of reasons people could stray away from Lord Death's rules or the paths of morality, such as greed or wanting more money or something like that, but almost 99% of the time, it all leads back to wanting more power for the wrong reasons. Now, it's important to mention that there's actually 3 types of souls. There's the pure souls and the Quichen eggs, both of which I've already mentioned, and then there's witches' souls. Not all witches are evil, but because witches' souls inherently have so much power as opposed to the other two, most of them become evil because they seek more power, because they have a taste of it and they want more and more. Weapons can also power up by eating souls, but unlike Quichen eggs, weapons actually eat the Quichen egg souls. And when a weapon eats 99 Quichen eggs and 1 witch's soul, they'll become a death scythe. Now, you actually don't have to be a scythe to be a death scythe. It's more of just a title to show that you've amassed so much power. Now, when you become a death scythe, you either become Lord Death's personal scythe like Spirit is, or you get sent to another country or area, and you kind of watch over that area to help maintain world peace. The reason Lord Death does this is because he can't leave Death City. His soul is basically trapped inside of Death City, and he's not allowed to leave Death City, so he sends his death scythes all over the world to help maintain order. Now, with all that being said, this takes us to our 7 main characters in Soul Eater. There's 3 teams in Soul Eater, and the first 3 episodes each break down one specific team, so I'm going to go in order of each team. The first episode introduces us to Maka and Soul. Now, Maka and Soul are already shown as a very well-established team, with Soul having 99 Quichen egg souls already, which means all he needs left is 1 witch's soul. So they go report to Lord Death, they tell him about the 99 Quichen eggs that they have, and he sends them on a mission to go get that 1 witch's soul. Now, when they're in the process of getting that 1 witch's soul, they come across a very interesting witch, we'll say. That witch happens to be Blair. So after tracking down and finding Blair, they start fighting with Blair in order to hopefully collect her soul. And now, while they're in this fight, you actually start to get a better understanding of those 2 characters, right? And that goes for all 3 of these episodes. The point of them is so you can understand how each duo or trio is different and how that makes them such a great team. And in this instance, Soul is a very cool, laid-back sort of guy, and Maka is very preppy and, straightforward. And obviously, there's our opposing personalities, but that's the reason they work so good together. They keep each other on each other's toes, and they keep each other thinking, and they keep each other balanced out. Now, right at the end, they have their pivotal moment where Soul pretends to go join Blair's team, but Maka doesn't know that he's pretending, and so Maka breaks down and asks, why do all men have to cheat on their partners? The reason she asked this is because her dad notoriously is a player and always cheated on her mom. And Soul then says the hardest line in the whole show and says,
After all, cool men don't cheat on their partners, do they?
He wraps his arm around Blair and turns it into a scythe, and then cuts Blair in half, and then gets the witch's soul. Now, Maka's obviously overjoyed that her partner didn't cheat on her, and it kind of just shows you how much trust these two partners have within each other. So after that whole lovey-dovey moment that they have, Soul eats the witch's soul, and he's going to turn into a death scythe, right? Well, he doesn't, because he didn't actually eat a witch's soul, and he ate a cat's soul, because Blair just happened to be a cat who can transform into a human. Now, as you guys already know, cats have 9 lives, so Soul basically just took one of Blair's lives, and then Blair comes back and then becomes Maka and Soul's house pet. Now, that first episode is really good, and it actually kind of sets up the entire tone for the whole story, where Soul Eater has very, very heavy moments and very intense moments, and it's always interrupted by something funny and goofy, and it just makes the show laughable, and it's just a cool show to watch. With that being said, we're going to talk about the second duo, Tsubaki and Blackstar. Now, Blackstar gets introduced to us in the second episode, and Blackstar basically has the personality of Naruto times 2. He's cocky, he's arrogant, and his main goal is to get enough power to surpass God. And Tsubaki is kind of the exact opposite. She's very mellow and shy and quiet, and they work really well together, because Blackstar brings Tsubaki up when Tsubaki needs to be brought up, and Tsubaki tries to mellow Blackstar out a little bit and keep him out of trouble, although most of the time he still gets into a lot of trouble. But anyways, they work really well together, and almost everybody in the entire academy says that Blackstar couldn't have any other partner except for Tsubaki, and Tsubaki is basically the only partner who can tolerate Blackstar. Now, during their mission, they're going to collect a witch's soul as well. However, they don't have 99 Kishin eggs, and they're doing it because it's a special mission from Lord Death. As they're going to collect this witch's soul, they run into a problem, and that problem is Mifune. Now, Mifune is a very highly skilled and trained samurai who is protecting the witch because the witch is just a child. But Tsubaki and Blackstar don't know that the witch is just a child, and they're trying to get through him so they can go and kill the witch to get the witch's soul. Now, they get to the castle where the witch is at, and they are starting to fight Mifune. And here you get to see just how powerful both of these characters are. Tsubaki can turn into like 5 weapons at this time, and Blackstar doesn't even need Tsubaki to attack. He can just hit the person with his hand and shoot out his soul wavelength. Now, after we see their display of power, we eventually see that they do end up defeating Mifune. However, as they defeat Mifune, the little witch comes around and blocks them from hurting Mifune any longer. And this is when Blackstar and Tsubaki realize that the witch is just a child. Now, after they realize this, they tell Mifune that they're not going to pursue the witch any longer. Number 1, because the witch is a child and they're not going to kill a child. And number 2, because the witch hasn't gone down the path of evil and darkness yet, and not all witches are inherently evil, as I said earlier. This moment is basically there to show you that even though Blackstar and Tsubaki are really powerful and Blackstar is really arrogant, they still have morals and hearts, and that they're not going to go down the path of darkness like everybody else. Almost kind of exactly like Naruto was. Like, you know, he's really powerful, really strong, but he's not going to use his power for wrong, even though he has every reason in the world to do so. The final trio, which we're going to talk about today, and yes, I said trio and not duo, is Death the Kid, Liz, and Patty. Now, normally, a weapon and Meister duo is a duo. You only have one weapon and one Meister. However, Death the Kid is a little different, specifically because he is Lord Death's son, and also because he is extremely obsessed with symmetry. Now, because Death the Kid is so obsessed with symmetry, in their episode on their special mission, whenever they're going to take out his mummy inside of a pyramid or whatever, he has to leave during the middle of their fight to go back to his house to check to make sure that the painting that he has hanging in his living room is hanging perfectly symmetrical and not 2 inches to the right as he suspects. Now, when Death the Kid is away, Liz and Patty have to hold their own against the mummies, which is fine because there's 2 of them and they both can turn into guns, so they take turns switching out and shooting down all the mummies. So they hold their own, and then eventually DTK gets back there and they're finally in the main room where they can fight the main mummy. Only problem is, Death the Kid ends up getting beat to a pulp by this mummy because he doesn't want to fight back against the mummy because the mummy is perfectly symmetrical. And it looks like he's going to lose this fight until the mummy emerges from his tomb. Death the Kid sees that something is slightly asymmetrical about it. He locks in, turns Liz and Patty into arm cannons, and absolutely obliterates the mummy. And in process of doing this, by the way, he basically blows up one of the ancient pyramids. So that episode explores their dynamic of how Liz and Patty have to keep Death the Kid in check, and how they help him with his OCD, and how when he does lock in and something is asymmetrical, he's basically unstoppable. Now, the one thing I wish this episode did better was talk about Liz and Patty. It kind of only focuses on Death the Kid in this one, and later we eventually do learn the backstory of Liz and Patty and how they were known as the Thompson twins in New York, and how they were thugs and gangsters, and Death the Kid finds them, sees that they're two symmetrical weapons, and basically saves them from that lifestyle. And because of this, Liz and Patty are extremely grateful to Death the Kid, and that's why they work. They keep Death the Kid in check, and they appreciate Death the Kid for saving them from a life of such terrible troubles and harm. The theme for Soul Eater can be summarized in one word: fear. Fear is essential to humans. I mean, fear is what keeps us on our toes. Fear is what keeps us alive. For example, if you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're not scared that you're going to fall off, you're more likely to slip and die, whereas if you were cautious, to not fall into the pit. Having no fear is essentially the same thing as going crazy, right? Without fear, there's nothing to prevent you from abandoning your morals. There's nothing to keep you in line, right? There's nothing holding you back. You'll keep going and going and going with no end in sight. To not have fear is to not be concerned about repercussions. And if you gain enough power to where you can control what happens and you don't care about what the repercussions of your actions are, that will be seriously detrimental to the people around you. While having fear is inherently a good thing, being consumed by that fear is also detrimental to oneself as well. For example, in the case of the Kishin, he's so scared of everybody else, and he's so scared of Lord Death and the power that Lord Death has, that he eats his weapon and he starts consuming all of these pure souls to gain so much power. He strays so far off the path of morality that he's not even a human anymore. He becomes a Kishin. And the only reason he goes down the path of evil and, he follows the path of the Kishin is because he's too scared. Fear controls so many people's lives. If you're never willing to take a risk and you're never willing to make that next step, how are you ever going to make that next step? And this is where bravery comes in. Having fear is inherently a good thing because it makes you a human. However, being consumed by that fear is a bad thing. So what's the solution? Being brave in the face of fear. Allowing yourself to realize, hey, this is pretty scary, but at the same time, I have to be brave, because if I don't do this, I'm never going to progress, is one of the strongest skills that you can have. And this is what we see out of Maka. What makes Maka one of the strongest out of the 7 main characters is the fact that she is brave. She knows that she might not be as talented as any of the other people in her group, but because she can stand in the face of fear and conquer it, that alone allows her to progress farther than some of the other people, such as Tsubaki. And that's not a diss on any of the other characters, but Maka is just methodical. Whereas Black Star is so brave to where he charges in and is almost fearless, and Death the Kid overanalyzes every single situation, Maka is right in the middle. She realizes the repercussions, and yet she does some of the actions she does anyways because she knows she has to. Her ability to analyze and assess a situation and then decide whether she should go through with that action or not is what gives her the edge. And then at the very end of the show, when it's just her against the Kishin, she knows she's outmatched. But she goes up, she brawls with the Kishin anyways, and she hits her with the smooth right hook, punches her with the bravery fist, and kills the Kishin with just bravery. The Kishin doesn't understand how someone can be brave in the face of fear, and the Kishin knows that Maka's scared. He can see that Maka's trembling, but Maka fights anyways, and that's what throws the Kishin off, and that's what ends up getting the Kishin killed. Now, this show made me really feel a lot of different things, I'll be honest with you. One thing I will say, though, is that the animation is incredible. I mean, this show was made in 2008, and the animation still holds up today, which is, insane. I would even consider it good animation for today's standards. The art style and the character design is amazing as well, and each specific character designs represents each character in their own unique way, and even their clothes show that as well. I mean, Soul in his like iconic little jacket thing that he's got going on, and Maka with her prim and proper look and the tie that she's got, like they showcase their personalities and why they work so good together at the same time. You know, going back to what I said about why their personalities contradict each other, and yet they're so good. And this goes for all the characters too, not just Soul and Maka. I mean, Black Star in his like assassin gear sort of thing, except he's got the bright blue hair to show that like he's the star of the show, and Tsubaki wears like a really long dress to show that she's soft and well-mannered, and, you know, Det the Kid, his perfectly symmetrical suit and very high-class sort of look, and Liz and Patty have these very street-style clothes that basically perfectly contradict Kid's look. I mean, I could talk about the art style and the animation for days, but one thing that I could talk about for probably forever has to be the music. I mean, just from the themes of the characters to both of the intros, I mean, they're all insane. Like, whenever I will watch a show, I normally watch the intro with every episode just because I think the intro is a part of the show. You're supposed to watch it because it kind of tells you what you're supposed to expect. You know what I mean? And so when I'm watching Soul Eater and I see these amazing intros and these amazing themes for all these characters, it genuinely brings joy to my face. Like, it is so good. There's no way for me to express how good the sound and the music and the official soundtrack is just for all of these characters. I think the main 7 characters, that little squad that they got, is so cool as well. I think each character has their own specific place, and they each have their own unique part in that show. Even Krona. Krona is one of the best characters ever, too. And I think that the problem that they're trying to face, the problem they're trying to solve of fear and, you know, having too much fear and that whole thing we talked about in the theme and everything like that, and all of the little side problems that go on in the entire show, I think those are amazing. Except for the ending. When I tell you I stayed up till 2 in the morning watching this show because I wanted to finish Soul Eater and get this video out to you as soon as possible, that's the truth. And I was so excited to watch the finale part of the show. And when I watched the final episode, I was pissed. I mean, it makes no sense. You're trying to sit here and tell me that when Black Star turns Liz and Patty into these special arm cannons and blast a hole the size of the moon in the Kishin, and when Black Star and Tsubaki use the enchanted sword mode and cut that dude's arm smooth off, that's not what killed him. No, it's also not Soul when he resonates with everybody, uses all of their power combined in one. No, it's not that either. It's Maka after everybody else is down. She runs up to the Kishin, gives it a good old right clock with a hammer on some 1-2 boom, and that's what gets her on. I mean, that's what kills the Kishin. You mean to tell me that? That makes no sense. That's terrible. I don't understand. Dude, I mean, this show has the potential to be one of the greatest shows ever. And I mean that seriously. Like, the whole concept, the whole ideas, the art, the design, everything about it is so cool. And the reason I said potential and not had the potential is because it still does have the potential. Because I truly do think they're going to remake this show because they ended Fire Force, and it's going to be incredible. I truly do think that they're going to give this show the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment. And I'll tell you why. This show was so ahead of its time, like literally and metaphorically, that when they were writing the manga, the show caught up to the manga, and so they had to diverge off the path, which is the exact same thing that happened to Full Metal Alchemist. And if you know your history, you'll know that's why they remade Full Metal Alchemist, stuck straight to the manga, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was created, and it's considered to be one of the greatest shows of all time. If and when they do remake this show, all they have to do is stick to the manga, because number one, they do stick to the manga in the original show all the way up until like episode 38, and from the beginning up until that point, minus like a couple episodes where they have to do some world building, it's my favorite show. I mean, 10 out of 10 easily. The style and everything like that is so interesting, as I said before. But all you have to do, if they remake the show, is just follow the manga. Because not only is there a whole bunch of extra content that isn't even in Soul Eater, like the original one, there's so many extra little character plots. Like, for example, Blair. Blair in this show is just a throwaway character for fan service, stuff like that. In the original, like, manga, she is absolutely tough. Another thing I forgot to say before that I absolutely think is incredible is the power system. With that being the soul wavelength and using soul resonance and stuff like that. The fact that it's essentially like a sound-based system that is kind of controlled by music, like whenever Soul plays the piano to link all of the souls together, I just think that is so cool. I think that, like, that's almost never been done before in any of the show, and if it has, please tell me in the comments below, but I just think that's so unique and interesting, and I don't think there's something else like it out there. It's time for everybody's favorite part of the Fudge review, the character ranking. Now, there's only 3 characters that I really didn't like in the show, and that's just going to be the main 3 from Arachnophobia, Mosquito, Jericho, and Arachne. I mean, what did they even do? Jericho literally, like, sits still for 800 years and just proves to us that he's a knockoff Chainsaw Man. Mosquito is a short little midget who sticks his nose into people and sucks their blood. I mean, that's just nasty, and he doesn't even do anything outside of that. Like, he literally serves no purpose to the story except for being Arachne's little pawn. And then Arachne doesn't do anything the entire show either. She just goes, sits in her castle, sits up in the spiderweb thinking she's tough when she's just nasty, and that's it. I mean, the Kishin literally uses her. Arachne's awesome. Oh, it's okay, Kishin. Everything's going to be okay. I promise everything will be all right. And then the Kishin just goes up there after everything's already been done, and he went, and he's dead. And at least Mosquito has somewhat of a decent fight against the main 7 because it's when we get to see Soul use his piano stuff for the first time. But all Jericho does is fight Justin Law 3 separate times, and he gets his butt handed to him 3 separate times. I mean, I really don't think any single time he does anything different that Justin Law can't counter. And honestly, I don't know why Justin Law doesn't just kill him, because he absolutely could. In fact, in the very last fight that Jericho has against Justin Law, when everybody else is done fighting and, like, it's just Jericho and Justin Law literally lets him run away just because he feels bad for him. On top of that, I think Arachne literally only has 1 fight in the entire show and nothing happens because guess who? Justin Law comes in and saves all of them, and then Krona comes and uses Ragnarok and saves Maka. I mean, like, that whole, like, series of characters, whenever they're shown, like, nothing good happens. And I'm sure they're probably better in the manga because it did diverge from, like, the manga when they got, like, close to when they got introduced. But, I mean, come on. You at least got to let them do something other than die. The only characters that I got in, like, the middle tier is, like, Erica and Free. I mean, they really, like, don't do anything in the entire show. Like, Free has this really cool intro, and you're thinking he's going to be, like, a very important villain. And then after one fight where he jumps off the bridge and freezes himself in ice, he does nothing. So, I mean, I guess that's cool. I mean, other than that, every other character is either a really good or just a fantastic character. Like, even Medusa, who I hated for the longest time, I ended up realizing that, like, I hated her just because she was such a good villain, like, throughout the entire show. And the fact that, like, her and Stein had this little, like, toxic sort of romantic relationship going on, and Stein, like, is more focused on like the moments and trying to get, like, that madness out of his head and stuff like that. Like, all of that is just, like, so cool to me. And I think basically every single other character in the entire show all has some unique or important purpose in some way. And if I was to talk about each and every single one of them individually, I would be here for 3 days. So I can't. What I can do is go down my list and say the names of the characters that I really, really do like. So starting off, I got Justin Law. Like I said, he absolutely dog walks Greerko in every single fight. So I really do like him. I like Marie and how, number one, she just turns into a hammer. That's pretty cool. But I also like how she keeps Stein in check almost like the whole time. And, like, it's almost a very contradictory thing. Like, Stein and Medusa represents sort of a toxic relationship, and Marie and Stein represents, like, what it's supposed to be like. I really like Blair. Like, Obviously, I think they did her dirty in the show because she doesn't have nearly a big enough role, but when she does, she's a pretty cool character. I absolutely like Krona. I think Krona's development from like the beginning of the show to the end is like amazing, and I think the fact that like Ragnarok is like inside of him is such a cool concept, and I really like his personality. I already said I like Stein and I like Medusa. I really like Excalibur just because he's funny, and then at the end he just pulls up and like is just watching the whole thing and is being a gangster. And I also like Asra, or I guess the Kishin. I mean, he really embodies fear like perfectly to a T, and I think he's a really good main villain. Another character who I think is kind of an unsung hero in this entire show is Sid. I mean, in terms of just teaching skills, I think he's by far the best teacher, and he's always looking out for the kids. And then on top of that, whenever they're leading like scout or recon missions, it's always Sid and Nigus, which is his weapon. I just think Sid is like such a cool character, and like he embodies an assassin really well. And I really do think that like his role is a good role, but I don't think he gets enough recognition for the role that he does play in the show. And then finally, getting to the main characters of the show, that being Tsubaki, Black Star, Liz, Patty, Death the Kid, and Maka in Soul. Every single one of these characters is one of my favorites in some way, shape, or form. I love the dynamic between Liz and Patty and Death the Kid, where Liz is like the sensible one and Patty is kind of like funny one, and Death the Kid is like keeps them in check, but they also keep him in check. I like Tsubaki and Black Star. I actually really like Tsubaki. I mean, she's just such an interesting character, and she has all this crazy backstory to her that you just wouldn't imagine. And I mean, like, it pairs perfectly with Black Star because so does he. And while they're so similar, they're also so different. And I mean, I absolutely love Maka too. Maka to me like perfectly embodies like the theme of the show, and she doesn't have any of the powers and abilities that Black Star and Tsubaki have. She doesn't have the Reaper body that Death the Kid has, or she doesn't have the magical skateboard or anything like that. And yet she's up there still banging with the big guns. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that that's so cool, and that it proves that you don't have to be anything special to be special, you know what I mean? And then two of my favorite characters have to be Spirit and Lord Death. Like, Spirit knows that he messed up in the past, and he messed up pretty bad, but the entire time he's trying to get Maka's approval, and you can tell that he really loves Maka, and he really loves his daughter. Like, I really do think Spirit is such a cool character, and the fact that, like, he genuinely is a death scythe and is not only wielded by Lord Death himself, but also Stein, is so cool. I really love the moment where Spirit and Stein are fighting Medusa, and Medusa's like, oh, Krona doesn't matter to me, even though, like, he's my kid or whatever. And Spirit genuinely comes out of weapon form and starts breaking down because he can't fathom the fact that someone wouldn't love their child. Like, Spirit is such a cool character to me. And Lord Death too. I mean, the fact that he had the scary appearance in the beginning with the deeper voice and the deeper mask, and he was traveling the whole world to get everybody in line and do good. Like, I mean, that's so cool. The reason he changed his voice and he changed his appearance was so that the kids wouldn't be scared of him. Like, he always had their interest at heart and wanted to lead the world like down the right path. And I just think that's like so rare to see that in like shows. Now, you guys might be thinking that I forgot a character, but you guys should know by now that of course I didn't forget a character. My favorite character in this whole show, I got that boy Soul Eater Evans. First off, I mean, how crazy do you gotta be to have a nickname Eater? I mean, that's insane. Like, I understand Soul Eater and like he eats the souls and stuff, but that's just outlandish if you ask me, and I think that's awesome. On top of that, I mean, that dude is just so cool. Like, with his motorcycle and like his whole personality and everything, like, man, that dude is just so tough. But then it gets even crazier because when you start to think about it, without Soul, they would not be able to do the resonance link because he's the one who actually controls the entire resonance link, and he's the one who leads the squad. He's the one who communicates with everybody throughout the entire time where the main 7 characters are resonating. He's telling them when to attack and when to go and when to strike. And if he like was not telling them when to do that or using his black blood, they wouldn't be able to do that. Another thing that's cool about this guy is that he's not sitting there giving them commands and telling them to do this and all that stuff. He's playing the piano, and the piano that he's playing The music that's coming out is so tough that they know what to do just by listening to it. They hear the heavenly notes that boy is playing, and they're on some, oh, and they just start working their opponents. Like, I mean, they just start giving them the business. Now, with all that being said and everything taken into account, I'm going to have to give this show on the Wyatt scale an 8 out of 10. It was one of my favorites. It was so cool and unique, and I don't think there's another show out there quite like it. And it's really awesome. However, on the people scale and the critique scale, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. And I'm sorry, but the ending ruined it. If you're looking at it from a content perspective only, that ending is atrocious, and it really, really messes up the show. However, when I'm watching a show, I don't watch a show just for the content. I watch a show and I give my ratings based off of how the show makes me feel. And just because that show is so cool and I think that it has so much potential to be so much better, I'm giving it an 8. I really like it and I really enjoy it. And I think if you watch it, you will too. I just think that it could have been so much better, and the ending really did, like, it didn't do the show justice. It needs the Brotherhood treatment. It needs to be brought back. And they need to do it with modern animation and modern day everything. Because if they did that and they gave this show the rework that it deserves, I promise you, it'll be one of the best-selling shows and one of the most watched shows ever. Good golly, that was a long video. Anyways, if you're still here, thanks so much for sticking around and watching to the end. I really appreciate it. Might as well subscribe, follow the Instagram, do whatever you got to do if you're not. I promise you, the next video I'm making, and I'm going to get started it almost right away, is Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. That is the #1 on my priority list right now. I had to get this Soul Eater video out. I think it's so cool, but I promise you, the next video is Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. Anyways, with all that being said, guys, I appreciate you so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for sticking around. I'm going to go talk to Lord Death.